Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Rantin Review Entertainment. It has been quite some time since we've done a video here, but we have the new season of Black Mirror, Season 7, that is out now. So I am planning on reviewing as many episodes as I can about the new season. Black Mirror is one of the few TV shows I actually still watch and look forward to new seasons from. The first couple of seasons were absolutely fantastic. There's been some variety in seasons 5 and 6. They've been, I guess there's some debate on the quality of those last two seasons, but season 7 is starting out strong, and I have to say this first episode, which is titled Common People, is a return to form of Black Mirror. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys, of course, I always got some free goodies down in the description box for you. If you want to get some free crypto, free stocks, free good stuff, sign up for anything cool. If you see anything down in the description box that interests you, definitely check it out. And now, let's talk about Common People. So, I'm going to preface this by saying there are several episodes of Black Mirror that, most episodes of Black Mirror have that kind of dark, dystopian, kind of Twilight Zone vibe to them. That is what the show is about. There are some that stand out as being some of the darkest episodes. Crocodile definitely stands out amongst them. I think it's called Shut Up and Dance from season 3 is one of the darker ones. There are a few other ones, but Common People, I think, is in the running, probably in the top 3 of some of the darkest Black Mirror episodes, and the fact that they chose that to start out season 7, I think is maybe, well, we'll see as we see the rest of the episodes, but maybe setting the tone for this season, and also, like I said before, showing that they've heard the criticisms, and this is a return to the form of the show. Chris O'Dowd, who plays Mike, and Rashida Jones, who play Amanda, two very great actors. Chris O'Dowd is like, you've seen him in a lot of different things, and he's very good at that. He's been in stuff like Bridesmaids and what was it, The Home for Peculiar Children and The Cloverfield Paradox and a bunch of other stuff that you've seen. And of course, Rashida Jones, I believe she wrote a prior episode of Black Mirror. I think she did write one. I can't remember what it is offhand. I may have to look it up in the editing process, but she's another person who's been around, been in a lot of shows. She's on another show right now that she's really great in. They play this couple, and we are introduced to them. I get a lot of vibes from the Haley Atwell, Domhnall Gleeson episode from Black Mirror. I think it was the first or second one in season 3 where I'll Be Right Back, where Domhnall Gleeson's character, he goes away, he dies, but she has a synthetic body that replaces him, and that whole thing from back then. This is a bit different and does get a bit darker. So we see them kind of celebrating their anniversary, which will be a big thing in the episode. Mind you, I'm going to get into spoilers in the later half of this video, so we're just going to set up right now. If you don't want to see spoilers after the synopsis, go watch the episode and then come back for the spoiler part, which I will let you know when that starts. But they're a normal couple. They're celebrating their anniversary at this cabin they go to, and they see the singers that they saw when they got married there. They have the hamburgers that they love. They go to the room that they had. There's still the gum that they somehow got on the ceiling when they were there before, and we learned some things about them as a couple. They've been trying to have a kid. There were some issues with it in the past. She's a school teacher. He works as a construction worker, and they're common people. They have a nice middle-class lifestyle. They're enjoying themselves. They have a nice life. They're a very adorable couple. You kind of instantly, within the first 5 minutes of seeing them, really like them as a couple. So this being Black Mirror, this is all a damn setup for you to be completely crushed later on. Something tragic happens, and once again, and as far as I'm going to go with the synopsis of it, technology does come into play. Like I said, it is reminiscent of another prior Black Mirror episode, but it does take a far, far darker tone. Overall, to my review as far as whether or not I recommend this is definitely, if you like Black Mirror, this is a highly recommended episode of Black Mirror. If you are a fan of the original couple seasons of this show, this will remind you. This will put you back in that same feeling you had when you first discovered this show and were like, what in the world is this? This is that Black Mirror episode. So from here on out, we're going to be into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet, again, go check it out. Come back here. But we are now in spoiler territory. So the rest of the episode goes, she unfortunately has a brain tumor, and it's something that they allude to early on in the episode because she's got a lot of headaches. Mike, her husband, he's a very accommodating husband. He's trying to help her out. She's worried about not having kids. She gets her period, so they're not going to have kids. One day she collapses as she's teaching her class, and they find out, again, like I said, she has a brain tumor. It's inoperable. She's probably not going to wake up. Mike, who is desperate, decides to say, hey, whatever you can do to help her, because he's so in love with her. We got that from the first 5 to 10 minutes of this episode, that he'll do anything. And that's when things start going awry. And when one of the doctors or nurses says, hey, there's an experimental procedure, you know where it's going. So we bring in this River Mind Technologies group. Tracy Ellis Ross, another fine actress who you've seen in many other things. She comes in like an angel, and she's got the answers. There's a surgery, a special experimental practice where this is where some of the references start coming in. So we're going to rack up the references here. The reference here is to Neuralink with, Elon's and Elon, love him or hate him, everybody used to love him. Now half the world hates him, but he's in the target now for the creative. So there is a bit of a Neuralink allusion here, and this is not the same thing Neuralink does, by the way, but they're going to take the part of her brain that has the tumor, remove it, replace it with a synthetic part that can connect to the rest of the brain tissue, which is something that's somewhat plausible, I guess. It is kind of like Neuralink in that way, but it's a little bit different. But the part of her brain that they are retaining is in a cloud somewhere, and it's like cell service. So Mike's like, I don't know if we can afford this. It sounds very expensive. And she's like, oh, no. It's not. The surgery's free, and you just pay a subscription fee of $300 a month. Now, for your life, $300 a month doesn't sound a lot. However, I do think, which it didn't sound a lot here, because I think we all pay, between our streaming services and our cell phones, I think we all pay something around that every single month, at least where I live at in the States. But it's a bit much for them as probably a lower middle class family to have that extra expenditure there. So they have the surgery. Amanda comes back. Everything seems to be fine. They go on about their lives. They got to work a little bit harder, cut back on some things, but for $300 a month. But his wife is alive, and she's alive. So, what proceeds from here, of course, is a downward spiral. We see as time goes on, they're working more. There's a little bit of resentment building up between the two of them because one of the conditions of her having the surgery is she has to sleep a lot more. Well, that time increases. There's a certain range in which she can exist in, because if she goes outside of that range, basically she has a seizure because she'll be out of cell service. So there's, and there's a lot of references in here, and we'll get to the references later on. As things go on, they increasingly get worse and worse. There's upcharges from the company. She starts reciting ads, and this really takes place. It really gets bad in her job at the school, where she gives one of the kids some advice that I find to be kind of funny. What they chose the advice that she gave, which was inappropriate too, because you probably wouldn't see that today. It'd be more of a opposite kind of thing that you would see from teachers, as if teachers these days aren't giving their children really bad advice. Especially little kids, about bad advice about their lifestyle choices. It's interesting they chose the Christian route as being the bad choice with this one. But this is all part of the service. She's going to give ads because the company is pushing ads through this brain implant that they put with her. And it continues to get worse and worse and worse. Like I said, Mike, earlier on, he had this crazy coworker who was watching his website called Dummies, where they're streaming and pulling out their teeth, and people are doing. Now, the second time they mention this, that's where this is going. They need money to pay. He's probably going to wind up doing this, and it's going to lead to that. So as Mike and Amanda want to get rid of the ads and get rid of her increasingly just sporadically saying things like, hey, I mean, eat some more lube when they're having sex, or giving bad advice to children, or telling a coworker who's nearing 50, hey, and there's a singles place for you to go. You can get on this dating app for people who are single over 50, and the woman wasn't even over 50 yet, which was that led to one of the funniest parts of this very dark episode. It was one of the funniest moments of this whole episode happened in that particular scene, but things get worse and worse and worse. They want to go travel. They can't go to their own place because it's out of range. And of course, you know what happens. The upsell happens from their Rivermind group, and they go, well, you can get Rivermind Plus for $500 more on top of what you're already paying. So Mike's desperate. He wants to hold on his wife. He doesn't want her. She doesn't want to be saying ads because she doesn't even know she's doing it. It's kind of, again, there's a lot of references in here. We'll get to them all later on. This just, again, you can see where it goes. It just progressively gets worse and worse and worse and worse. By the end, he has to do the Dumb Dummies site and do very embarrassing things in order to make money, to pay for the service. They keep upcharging. Every time they turn around, it's a new thing. Well, if you want to do this, it's going to cost you more. This is going to cost $1,000 a month more. Oh, and what about the service we were on? And this is where the title comes in. Oh, that's Rivermind Common, right? So she doesn't want to be on a Common, because if it's like YouTube, it's like if you don't get YouTube Red, you're going to be inundated with ads every time you even touch the fast forward or rewind player, like button, whatever. If you interact with it at all, you're going to get thrown an ad within 5 seconds, and they don't want that anymore. So he's increasingly stressing himself out, overworking. It eventually gets to the point where she sleeps so much she can't keep her job. The ads prevent her from keeping her job. He's paying more, she gets her job back, but they can't afford it anymore because he's doing this weirder and weirder stuff. She's sleeping more and more and more. And it's just a never-ending cycle of him trying to keep her alive, probably when she shouldn't have been. And it gets so bad to the point where near the end of the episode, he's doing this Dumb Dummies website. It gets leaked at his job. He goes to his job, and people found out that he did some rather disgusting things on that website. Nobody wants to talk to him. He's being ridiculed by the guy. He's like, hey, you did the site. And that leads to an altercation where the coworker gets somewhat, a little bit of retribution. You can kind of see from the writers, like for people who watch channels like that and watch streaming shows like that, IRL streamers, that he got his comeuppance in a very gruesome kind of a way. But this then leads us a year later, and we see what happens because he's lost his job then, she's lost her job, they can't afford it, and now he's stuck doing Dumb Dummies to make an income. They have to sell something that was very close to them later on in the movie, or later on in the show, and the irony, it was a baby crib that they bought. They reference it very early on for the child that they wanted to have that they never would be able to have, because Rivermind also tells them that, well, if you get pregnant, that's going to be an additional charge because it messes up your brain chemistry, which it does. So we're going to have to charge you more because you're going to cost more. You're going to take up more resources from our server, and you're going to have to sleep more. So because, like I said, it's a spiraling thing out of control. He winds up getting a gift card that'll give him 30 minutes of time with his wife, because at this point, they're struggling just to keep her alive. And she's gets that clarity where she's not rattling out ads and she's not sleeping, to just go, I think it's time. And this is where I say it's one of the darkest episodes ever. You know what's coming. Mike has to, Amanda tells him to do it when I'm not here, meaning when I'm running one of the ads. He lays her down. They say their goodbyes. The subscription service runs out. They had the little timer there. When it runs out, she immediately starts going and spouting off ads, and he basically has to suffocate her. He suffocates her, and the interesting thing they do in the show is that there's a lot of times where you see the camera shots of their feet at the bottom of the bed under the covers, and throughout, when they were at the cabin, when they're in bed, and when they're getting up for every day for work or whatever. And this very last shot, you see her feet as she's being suffocated by him, and he throws up, and then he goes into the room where he does the live stream, and he extends an X-Acto knife and closes the door with this morose look on his face, leaving what he does up to interpretation. Now, I've seen many other people interpret what happened at the end of it. Some people said he killed himself on stream. Other people said that he's just going to continue on doing that stuff, doing it because he has to, because he can't live. He's got to do that to make any money. Once you're on there, you can't get a job, so he's stuck doing that. My personal feeling is that I agree. I take the implication that he probably killed himself on stream, because remember, he just killed his wife. So, and he had attacked somebody at his job, and all of these bad things that happened. And he wouldn't want to live after killing his wife. The whole reason that he couldn't imagine life without her, and now he had to be the one to kill her, and they left it up to your interpretation. So references in here, I mentioned a lot of references in. The show references itself, the history of Black Mirror. There is the singers from the beginning of the show are bringing back the "If you know what love is, anyone who knows what love is will understand" song, which has been in several episodes since episode 2 of the first season. They bring back the whole thing with the bees from one prior episodes of the show. There's a lot of other references here and there. There's references to future episodes we haven't seen yet. One of the future episodes is referenced in the movie display in one of the scenes as they're driving down the road. So those are there are a lot of Black Mirror self-referential things, as has become the case with Black Mirror, but there are also a lot of other references in here. Now, this story overall is a Faustian story. You basically, sell your soul for something, but ultimately you're going to pay worse for it because you sold your soul to do something to the devil, essentially. And there's very much, this is basically a Faust story. Other references in here, the whole river mine thing, that technology again is coming, and there are some concerns about it, which are kind of in a very, exaggerated way here with Black Mirror, because it is. They reference their own platform that they're on. Charlie Brooker, who is the writer of the show, has no qualms about mocking Netflix on its own platform. This is the second time they've done this because of the subscription service. And like I mentioned before, everybody knows who has YouTube or Netflix or Disney Plus or any of these places, your cell phone service, they always upcharge you. Oh, if you want better service, then you got to pay more. If you want this, you got to pay more. You want this, you got to pay more. Now, if you're giving your brain over to a company that does a subscription service, there is nothing to stop them, especially if you once again don't read the fine print, from upcharging you and then throwing in ads into everything else. So there's a commentary on that with the subscription service. There's commentary about obsession. Mike is very obsessed with keeping his wife alive, a bit too obsessed with it, and what you will do for love. There's several songs, both songs in this episode are referencing what somebody would do for love. And yes, he loves Amanda, but there does come a point in time where that love can become painful. And if he loved, the guy, if you love me, you let me go. And that's kind of where it winds up at. There's references with the Dumb Dummies website that some people may or may not be familiar with. Some people think it's just Twitch. This is, to me, it seems to be more in line with IRL streamers. There is a subgenre of live streaming called in real life streamers who do things like you see on Dum Dum. It actually is a thing. Probably the most famous case right now is this guy, Johnny Somali, who is on trial in South Korea because he goes from country to country and does obnoxious things because people will pay him $20 in live chats to go do something stupid and obnoxious, and it's landed him in a lot of trouble where he might wind up in a jail. Well, he's already been jailed once in Japan. Now he might wind up in South Korea jail for a very, very long time. And there are a lot of IRL streamers like that. So there is commentary on that and references to that. And not to pick on anybody, because I'm going to show a clip here that kind of was what I thought of when I saw the part in this show about her spontaneously going into ads in the middle of conversations and situations. It reminded me of what, a lot of us here on YouTube do when we ask for likes and subscriptions and stuff like that. But probably more so to like podcasters and the way that they, whether it's Rogan or whoever it is, in this case, Ben Shapiro in this example.
Those are not, in fact, the tariff rates that are being charged on American goods going into Taiwan or Japan or India or any of these other places. It's just not right. Well, listen, I don't love these tariffs, as you may have noticed, but Doge continues to do some good things, like cut the fat from decades of bloated government spending and corruption. Pure Talk, the cell phone company I use for business every day, they're cutting the fat from the wireless industry.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of that, and I think Charlie Brooker was probably kind of commenting on that as well. there's an obvious message here too about healthcare. That one's kind of obvious. Amanda has a brain tumor. They can't afford to pay for the surgery, but they're given this sweetheart deal, which is the Faustian deal again. And the fact that in particular the United States, I'm actually surprised because I don't think this show takes place in the United States, but it's talking about that kind of a healthcare system, which is a pay-to-play healthcare system, which, you know, has its benefits and its setbacks. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to immediately go to capitalism and consumerism. I mean, this is kind of more of a consumerism kind of thing, but the for-profit model for medicine brings about this kind of a problem. And my personal opinion, this is editorial here, personal opinion, so if you don't like to hear those, this is going to be brief, but my opinion has always been certain things, even in a capitalist society like medicine, and I'd also say law, I'd also say journalism, should not be for profit. They are services that are to be provided. Now, there are ways around that, there are ways to mitigate that, but that would negate these kind of problems from happening. I do see the kind of the claim and the desire for healthcare to not be such a financial burden to ruining people's lives, which this show definitely addresses that outcome that could possibly happen from being inundated with bills to keep yourself alive to the point where you have to living is actually more miserable. In order to stay alive, you've got to do a bunch of miserable things. The other side of that argument, however, is that, and this is very true, because of the pay-to-play system, you also have tremendous and extraordinary advancements in medicine that would not be there if there wasn't as much funding and as much money into the system. So you're going to pay for that one way or the other. So it is, again, like most things, not just a cut and dry, hey, all healthcare should be free, or, well, if you can't pay for it, then you just die. I mean, I think there's probably a middle ground between the two of them. So you get a lot here in this first episode of Black Mirror. Like I said, all of that context put together in the story is packaged very, very well. Some of the pacing's a little bit off in the episode, but overall, I think this is a great way to start out season 7 of Black Mirror. And like I said, it is one of the darkest episodes, so be aware of that. If you don't want to see really something that's probably going to make you feel like, man, that was a bummer, this is a bummer episode if you're very sensitive to that kind of stuff. But if you like going down that journey and, kind of seeing like, yeah, here's how all things that we are doing now could go wrong, which is what Black Mirror essentially winds up being about. But I want to know what you guys think about common people. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Thank you for checking out this video. We will, again, I plan on doing most of the episodes, if not all the episodes, for season 7 of Black Mirror here on the entertainment channel. If you appreciate this kind of analysis, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the episode and what you thought about the analysis. And until next time, I'll see you guys here as we continue covering and reviewing shows and movies and everything else here on the Rantin Review Entertainment. Take it easy.